On today's podcast, I talked to Lou Tharp. He's a social entrepreneur, an author, a tri/swim coach, and one of my mentors. We get into all things swimming and coaching. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation as much as I did.
I don't often agree with other swim coaches.
Yeah, I
So,
feel like it's our job as coaches of any kind to disagree, right? We
yeah,
shouldn't just take things at face value.
definitely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Question
You know,
everything. Yeah. I feel like
I was thinking about that the other day, and thinking about because swimming is so much always in flux. It's like one year you're supposed to do this, one year you're supposed to do this. And, one year you put your hand like this, and the next year you put your hand like this, and it goes on and on and on. And I was trying to decide, what do coaches actually bring to the party? You
yeah,
know, what actually is their job? Because so much of what we all teach is not backed up by science. It's backed up by our anecdotal, confirmation of our own biases. And so, I think you go faster in red bathing suits. So that's it. We're going to have red for the team. And so we have coaches like Doc Councilman. I mean, you may be too young for Doc Councilman.
I know
He
who he
used to
is.
always say, "Look where you're going when you swim." Remember this? I don't know if you remember that, but he was like, "Look up and look at the wall when you swim." So how did he get away with that all those years? And then you have people like Don Shula and Bear Bryant, the football coaches, who wouldn't let players drink water during the 60s and early 70s during practice. It's like no water. That's it. How did they get away with that? And what I've come to decide is that we don't usually know what we're doing. And what we do though is bring life to the sport. That's it. We bring your willingness to show up again, and we bring your good nature and your willingness to push yourself, and that's all we do. Everything
Yeah,
else is incidental. If we know where your heart is, then we know that your heart is a bigger muscle than any other muscle in your body, and your heart is what's going to bring you back to practice, meaning heart emotionally rather than heart physically.
absolutely.
And I'm convinced that it's your brain that determines victory. That's it. Of course, it matters if you're proficient at your sport, but it matters more if you're focused and if your brain is in the right place and your psychological disposition is in a place that allows you to win. And you define what winning is. And that's all we do. That's it. So
The end of
there.
the podcast. You
I'm
just
just
answered
saying, that's it. We could go drink coffee now. I don't drink coffee, but we could go do whatever we want. But yeah, because I'm trying to decide what to do. I'm trying to decide whether to go back to Columbia next year.
Yeah.
I don't know. The bureaucracy is a mess, and I'll say that on a podcast because everybody knows it. And it's a mess, and it takes a lot of work to actually bring that kind of enthusiasm and create that place in people's hearts where they want to come back and they want to do their best. And so, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, yeah,
I understand where you're coming from, and I think I've always asked this question of myself as a coach, like, what am I actually bringing to the table?
yeah,
Um, and there is when I hire somebody for swim box, I always ask them what the difference is between an instructor and a coach, because I don't
yeah.
want to
Good.
hire an instructor. I want to hire a coach, and there
Right.
is a difference. And to me, an instructor is dictating things, where a coach is asking things, right? I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do something. I'm going to ask you to think about how to do something, and you're going to tell me how you're going to do it. Um,
Right.
so I think what you're sort of like hinting upon or like touching on is exactly right. If a coach is confident in what they teach and what they preach and what they do, their athletes are usually successful, right? But if a coach is questioning what they're doing, I see this a lot in beginner coaches because I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of new coaches through USMS and doing certifications for them, and they all have the same or similar mentality, which is they want more information. They want more information. Well, how do I
Right.
teach this? And how do I get someone to do this?
Right.
They should just probably start giving information. They should
Yeah.
give their thoughts. And it's hard to get someone to change that mentality of, oh, I'm a beginner coach. I don't know anything about this sport, or I don't know enough about this sport. So you tell me all the things you know. Well, no, you start sharing with me what you know, and I'll be able to help. Um, so it
Yeah.
is, and I think that's something I've taken away from you. And by the way, I give you credit for me wanting to do Try Swim Coach.
Oh,
I've said
wow.
that to many people because the time that we spent in Austin together um, demonstrated to me that triathlon is an opportunity to reach people in a different way
Mm,
than swimming. Right? To me, swimming is a very technical sport and a very I don't want to say exclusive, but it definitely isn't inclusive.
right.
So there's, I don't know, triathlon just has a different feel to it, and I'm going to say vibe to it, where
Yeah.
like it does feel a little bit more welcome. It does give opportunity for people who might not have very much experience on a bike or experience swimming to try something new. But if you don't have experience swimming, why would you join a swim team?
Right.
Right?
Right.
It,
That's
it
a
wouldn't happen.
really interesting point because most of the people who show up at Columbia to join the tri team say swimming is my worst. I don't know how to swim. I can bike, I can run, because we've been doing that since we were little. But
Yeah,
you're right. And this gets people into swimming.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
swimming's the only sport that I know that'll save your life. So,
That's a good
um,
point.
right?
You're
I've
right.
never seen I've never seen a tennis player be like, "Tennis saved my life." Doesn't work. So,
That's right. That's right.
um,
So, yeah, the other thing that we have, I think that can cause some coaches to get frustrated is that we know more than we can actually tell people. And and the example here is that you can't watch a proficient swimmer on your team swim and then copy what they do in the swim. And we can't tell people, okay, you need to put your hand here and you need to do this. We have a limited role to play when it comes to where to put your body in the water. We know you need high hips, we know you need head in line with you, but we know some basics. But then why do certain people swim so much faster than other people? Why do certain people have a 160 heart rate and somebody else comes in at a 120? We don't know because we can't tell. And there was one of the fathers of artificial intelligence and general computing, Michael Poliani, said that exactly, that we know more than we can tell. And his example was if you drive to work, you make hundreds of thousands of decisions every day, every minute that you're driving to work. You're going to do this, you're going to do that. You can't program that into a computer. It's just not possible. Even with AI, we can't do it. And to stick with that analogy, these autopilot, these self-driving cars wreck,
yeah,
and they're not what they're supposed to be because it's impossible for us to tell everything to a computer that it needs to know to drive us to work. And I think it's impossible for coaches to do that. And the only way I've been able to approach that is that, and in fact, nationals are over, and so and graduation is coming up. Sunday was our last practice. Out of a team of about 40 people, 2 people showed up for swim practice because, of course, there is that other thing going on at Columbia, and so it's a little difficult to get on campus right now. So 2 people showed up. So I look at this as wonderful because A, I get to swim now, and B, I get to do essentially one-on-one swim practice, which is really what I love.
yeah,
When 30 people show up for swim practice, I just think, okay, this is going to be a nice aerobic practice, and that's it. Nobody's going to get any better because I'm not going to be able to say, hey, take a look at this. So what happened was we started swimming, and both of them are swimming with really low hips. You know that. Last time you and I swam together, I had low hips. So that's a very common sort of thing. And if you're familiar with it, you know how to fix it right away. But these people really didn't know how to fix it. And so we worked for an hour before I told them that I was working on fixing their hips. Because when you identify the problem, all they do is worry about the damn problem. So I didn't say a word about it, and both of them had high hips at the end of an hour. There's actually an hour and a half more. And so, you just, okay, here's what I'd like you to do. I want you to just swim on your stomach with your hands out in a streamlined position, kick so the tops of your feet are above the water. So you look to see, does that raise their hips? In fact, it did for one guy, it didn't for another guy. The guy was literally swimming like that.
Yeah,
His
like a
feet were
banana.
way up there and his
We
hips
call
were
it
down.
we call it bananas.
Yeah, right. And you go through step after step after step. Okay, now what I want you to do is kind of press down on your upper body when you're swimming. Do that. See what happens. And this didn't work for this guy. We went through like 5 of these steps before his hips came up. And then he just came in and he goes, you know what? This is getting easier. And I just thought to myself, yeah, it's because your legs aren't dragging like that
Right.
across the water. And then I explained to him what I was doing. And then what it allows them to do is that to take credit for it. They did it. So what happens is, I think as a coach, you need to put them in a position so that they can take credit and get all the energy from that accomplishment. And if you take the credit, you suck all the energy out of them. And you're not the person competing. You're not the one doing that. You're the coach. And I think that's the other thing that really differentiates coaches. If you're willing to absolutely subordinate your own ego and let them take all the credit for it, then I think you'll produce a lot better athletes.
I agree 100%.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's amazing, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah,
I actively tell my athletes that when they tell me things, like, "Oh, I heard your voice in my head while I was doing X, and so I did it because you were in my head." I don't
right,
it feels like I'm doing something I didn't do. And I'm so proud of, like, I have athletes who I've known now for about 13 years, where I've seen them not be able to swim 25 yards
right,
at age, like, 48, and at age 60 swim a 10K open water, right?
right.
I've seen that growth all the way through, and I have helped along the way, but that person did all of that. She put in all that work and all the exercises and all
That's
the
right.
dry land and all the other training that she was doing,
Definitely.
and all the heartache too, right? I mean, there's a lot of ups and downs when you do things like this, and you're gonna get hurt, and you're not gonna want to do anything anymore. You're gonna get hurt emotionally because you feel like you're failing, or why is that person faster, and why can't I get faster, right? There's so many variables to a human body that it's almost impossible to know exactly, like you were saying, to know exactly why someone's faster than the other. We have general understandings, but we can't absolutely know. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it is a hard thing to do going from an athlete to a coach, but it was very easy. I think probably about year 10 for me is when I started to hit that stride where I was like, I'm not an athlete. I don't get any of this credit. I don't want any of this credit. I
Right.
don't like to
Right.
compete anymore. I burnt myself out on competing. And so
Yeah.
I'm here just to support those who do want to compete or do want to push themselves to another level. And I get
Agree.
tremendous joy and pleasure from working with individuals in that way. Um, and to your point, I designed a business that normally I would work with 30 to 40 people at a time as a swim coach. But I
Hmm.
designed a business swim box that is one person at a time, and
Yeah.
that is such a difference. And um, I think we need both, to be honest, right? I think we need opportunity to have a focus just on one person or maybe two people, um, so they can really understand what they're doing. But then they need some rabbits and hares to chase, right? You need some people to work with and like go after. You need training. You have to train. Swimming is a technical sport, but that technique only supports your training and the training only supports your technique. So anyone coming
Right.
into the mindset of swimming should be easy. I just need to have good technique. They're thinking of it wrong. I don't think swimming is easy. I don't think being athletic is easy. And so it's like, well, how do I go easy? I hate that question from people,
I know.
um, because it's just not. And as you get better at something, the harder it becomes, not the
Definitely.
easier.
Oh
And so,
yeah. Yeah. The more you realize you don't know.
yeah,
And you know what happens too? I get a fair number of swimmers who are kind of below the 50th percentile in capability, or not capability, maybe, but in proficiency.
there you go.
And I get probably 3 or 4 swimmers a year who absolutely don't know how to swim, and there's a pretty, pretty large amount of fear. Um, and I can get them to the place where they can do 25 yards, 50 yards, 100 yards. They can do that. And then I can get them to the place where they can actually do a practice over an hour. Um, and what happens with people, and it's kind of the cutoff point, is when do they stop listening to me and start listening to their body and listen to themselves?
Mhm.
And that's when you see the real improvement. And it gets back to what you were saying. It's like they have to be able to take that initiative to go to the pool by themselves and start to learn. And you can say to people, every time you get in the water, you have to learn. If you don't learn something after a swim practice, you really wasted an hour. You wasted 2 hours. So you could just jump on a treadmill and get your heart rate up. That's just not the point of swimming. And so the people who go to that next level, who start that self-actualization, who start to really manage their body in the water, and who start to process all these things that were happening and start to realize, oh, wait a minute, I really squirted forward there on that last stroke. What did I do differently? And then try to replicate that. They're the ones that then move into the for a triathlete, like a 120 pace for 100. And you're holding a 120, 125, which at the collegiate level makes you competitive at a non-draft legal triathlon. You're going to finish. You don't have to finish in the first pack, because you don't have to worry about drafting on the bike and you don't have to be in a peloton. So you can do that if you just can cross that bridge to that place where you actually start teaching yourself and you start learning. Then that swimming in a group, the rabbit and the hare and all of that stuff, that's like becomes so rewarding for the swimmers because they're really putting that to work. So yeah, it's a fascinating kind of process to go through.
It is, and it's amazing to hear you say that because I say the same thing to my clients all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
I tell them basically, initially, when we start working together, it's going to be a lot of me sort of dictating things to them so they just have an understanding. And then the way they typically are going to work, and I tell this to them, they're probably going to think of the things that I tell them in steps. It's
yeah,
very rare that someone comes in and doesn't think in steps. I consider those people to be the athletic, naturally athletic people where they go, oh, do this. Okay, I've done it. All right. Those are very coachable people. And
right,
they have pluses and minuses, but for the most part, people always break down whatever they're doing or learning into these steps, and then they have to think about those individual steps. And thoughts occur slower than reflexes. All right.
right.
So if you're thinking about what you're doing, you're going to move slow. The end of the conversation there. So, and then I always dictate to them. I always tell them at some point, this becomes more cooperative, where I have to ask you what you're experiencing and what you're feeling and what you're understanding through each round that we do or through each practice that you do. Um, because it's those emotions and those feelings of like what's working, when is working, help me to understand what they might be doing and how I can help them. So it's kind of bizarre that I feel like we're starting to mold into one coach now.
Yeah,
So
right. I know.
it's kind of bizarre. So, but I
So
think this is over time, right? I mean, this is what you learn over time as a coach.
yeah, you do. So I bring an Airex. I don't know if people don't know what an Airex is. It's
Yeah,
it's
what's
like
your
a square pillow, a square, like maybe 2 inch high pillow. They're usually blue, and they say Airex, and they're kind of bushy. They're kind of foamy.
okay.
Um, and I bring that to early practices because I think so much of swimming is getting from that conscious competence level to the unconscious competence level. And so everybody gets a chance to stand on the Airex on one leg. And the idea is that you have to balance yourself on this little squishy thing on one leg. And they've also got those round things that are kind of half moon shaped and they get flat on the top. And you do that. That's kind of a PT thing. And they're too much trouble to lug down to the pool. So I take the Airex. And the point is that when you're trying to balance yourself on that Airex, you are not thinking, oh, I need to recruit my hip flexors here in order to stabilize my core. And you're not doing any of that. You're just going, how in the hell do I balance on one leg? And your brain is figuring it out much faster. It gets back to Polanyi. We know more than we can tell. I cannot tell you how to balance on that thing. Just get on it and do it. And there's a point at which in swimming where, okay, you got to stop doing those things in sequence. You've got to now let it go. And that's where I think I don't know if I should plug tempo training because I don't like their pricing. They keep getting more and more expensive.
I'm
Yeah,
on the same page as you.
let's be realistic. It's $1.20's worth of material there. Don't charge me $70 for this thing,
That's what they're
please.
charging now?
Yeah, I had to pay $69 or something for one. It was crazy.
I remember when they were
And so
$20.
yeah, it's absolutely nuts. So anyway, I'm sure they have a good reason for doing that, but I'm not sure what it is. But that's why tempo trainers really help because it focuses that willingness to follow process on a beep. And it's like, okay, now you just got to follow the beep. And it's absolutely amazing to watch people who cannot get below an 18 stroke count to get
Mhm.
down to 13 or 14. And they're just amazed with themselves. And it goes back to the whole thing about, let them make the accomplishment and let them take credit for it. And they do it. Then, 20 minutes later, they're about to throw the tempo trainer out the window because it's driving them nuts. But nevertheless, it really does help to eliminate the process of swimming by substituting it for a beep.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, that's why I like them. And as you know, I'm not a big pool equipment guy.
yeah.
I like those weighted gloves, and I
Ooh.
love anything that makes your life more difficult because then when you take them off, you feel like, oh my God, I'm swimming so fast.
Yeah,
Which is why, forget about the kickboard and the pull buoys and the fins and the paddles and all that stuff. We don't go near that stuff. Stretch cords though, or whatever they're called, where you tie them
yeah,
to the starting block
yep,
yeah, I could do those all day.
yeah,
And I think that that's when you get students, and that's all I coach are students. But when you get students who are used to being coached by traditional coaches, you can always tell because first they show up with this big speedo net bag over their shoulder, and it is packed with stuff. It's like
yes.
packed. And, I mean, there is stuff in there that they haven't used for 5 years, but there's always a pool buoy and a kickboard and a pair of fins and a snorkel. Oh yeah, there's the
Always.
snorkel thing and all of that. And I say, we're a very egalitarian university here, and not everybody can have all these toys. So you're going to have to put your toys aside because we can't afford to buy toys for everybody. And then under my breath, I just say, yeah, and we don't use that stuff. And so, but you can tell, traditional coaching, they bring that with them, and it's sometimes difficult to break because they don't have the confidence to accept new stuff. They're swimming, they're just holding on to their swim, and it's getting slower. They were in high school, now maybe they're their second year of college, and they're not exercising as much. They're getting slower, and they're scared to death. And so the last thing they want to do is change their stroke. The
Yeah.
last thing they want to do is do what you do, and do this kind of windmill thing. It's like, I couldn't sell that. If it came with a new car, I couldn't sell it to these kids. Some of them, yes, but the kids without the confidence, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
And so it's fascinating to watch how much emotion everybody brings to the pool, and if you don't recognize all that emotion that they're bringing, you're going to be in trouble because they're going to get angry or they'll act out, or they'll try to disrupt practice in some way by like asking 100,000 questions. And yeah, you just, and I just make a joke, because it's like, first of all, I always joke that the team is on Columbia time. I cannot get them to show up on time for a practice. And I mean, I said, I will give you $100 if you show up they didn't believe me, but nobody shows up. And getting them in the water is absolutely so difficult. They'll walk up, they'll stand right on the edge of the pool, and they will talk for like 5 minutes. And
the warm up.
and I know it reminds me. We were flying into JFK one time on. I actually forgot the airline. I don't know what airline it was, so I don't want to give them credit because virtually they all suck anyway. So, but The flight attendant said he got on the phone. Of course, we're on the runway and everybody's starting to stand up and get their bags and stuff. The flight attendant said, "Hey, listen, we've had a really long flight here. And as you know, we've served 2 meals on this flight. And so a lot of people have been using the bathrooms. And the reality is that we actually can't get into the gate till we clean up the bathrooms because if the supervisors come out and see the bathrooms messy like this, that we're all going to get in trouble. So anybody who wants to help clean the bathrooms, please stand up." And, and it was perfect. It's like everybody sat down. And I'm trying to find the equivalent of that to get people to get in the water. It's like, how do you get them to just walk up and jump in the water? And we lose 5 minutes if they're 5 minutes late, and then 5 minutes there. It's maddening to kind
Yes.
of to have to deal with that all the time.
Yes.
And they complain it's cold and all that, but once you get in, it's they do it, they forget.
Right.
But anyway,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how we got down that
Yeah,
rabbit
it doesn't matter. It's coaching.
hole,
Who
but
cares?
yeah,
So yeah, I don't really coach on deck anymore, right? Because I only basically do swim box. The other day we were doing a flip turn clinic for like teenagers, basically, like 13-year-olds and 12-year-olds. And I knew them from swim box, but I don't know them at a regular type of swim practice. So I was
yeah,
running the clinic like a swim practice for them because even though we were working on flip turns, they had to focus on speed with the turn, right? Because they're competitive swimmers, they're doing flip turns, probably like hundreds of times in a practice. So every time you do a flip turn, it's an opportunity to practice it. They have to
right.
practice doing it at speed for their races and things like that. So it was a very intense, high effort clinic to work on flip turns for these kids who don't normally get coached that way. And there was definitely one trying to buy time, asking 1,000 questions, right? And so
Yes,
I had to employ my old coaching mentality, which was I repeat myself 3 times. After that, you don't understand. You don't understand. Ready, go. That's it,
right.
right?
That's
And
a
so
nice way to do it.
you set the tone. I say, I get it. It's loud. It's a pool deck. I might not be speaking clearly. My head might be turned to one lane. I say it to the other lane, and then I say it to everybody. We're leaving on the 30. 3, 2, 1, go. That's it.
Yeah,
Right? If
right.
you mess up, you mess up. And I go, well, you messed up that time. Let's do it again. Right. So I think,
Yeah.
the mentality of I'll share this with you first. I have a marathon swimmer who is doing a pilgrimage trail in Spain for 6 weeks.
Mm,
I can't remember the name of the trail. It's very popular. I'm sure somebody's listening to this right now, slamming their head against their steering wheel, going like,
yeah,
"It's this." Anyway, because I've known her for
right.
so long, and she knows Lissa. She wanted to come over and hang out a little bit before she went away for 6 weeks, and we're all just talking about swimming in general. And we described swimming as basically a series of mistakes that we're constantly trying to correct. Um,
Yeah, I like that.
it's a great way to think about it, right? And so
Yeah,
it's almost like we're just tripping down the pool, trying to act like no one's seen us trip, right? And so that mentality, I think, should be exploited and used when it comes to swimming. No one's doing it right. No one's doing it perfect.
right.
Just do it, right? Get in there. You make mistakes. We have an opportunity to do it again, right? So I've always viewed swimming. I've always enjoyed swimming as my like primary sport because you take thousands of strokes in a workout. You take hundreds of breaths in a workout. You do, a bunch of flip turns in a workout. Every time you get an opportunity to take a stroke or to take a breath or do a flip turn, you have an opportunity to do it better than the previous one, right? And you're going to lose focus within 90 minutes. You're going to mess it up. It's okay. You've got another
Yeah.
100 strokes coming your way, right? And so
It's a
it's
great
the
way to
same
look
thing in
at it.
practice.
Yeah. That leaves the sprinters kind of out in the cold, but, if you're doing the 50-meter.
It don't matter.
Yeah, it's why I don't like sprint, and it's that exact reason because you get one chance on a 50 in a short course. You get one chance on a 50-meter to do a flip turn. That's it. It better be perfect. You get one chance to touch that wall, and that's it. You got to do it. And you actually get one chance on the starting block. I haven't thought about this. If you're swimming at a 1650 or a 1500-meter, so what if you're half a second late on the starting block? It's not going to matter. But yeah, you're right. That sprinting it's a tough. Although I did do, I came close to it. I did a 50 fly
Oh.
at the IGLA meet in London in June, and I thought 50 flies because I usually do like 200 fly,
Mhm.
and but I was totally out of shape. My shoulder was hurting. I was a mess, and there's no way I was doing a 200 fly. So I said, "All right, I'll do a 50. What the heck?" And so I took off. My first, it was 25 meters. My first was 18 seconds. My split, and I knew it was good. That for me, that's very good. That's a great time.
Mhm.
Going back, it was like 23, and I thought,
Okay.
there's something to this sprint thing, It's like, wait a minute. And it
You
might
know,
have even been 24. I got to look at that. But it's like all of a sudden everybody pulled ahead of me going back. And I went, oh God,
that's what a good
this is
start will
not
do.
enough.
It'll put you out in front.
Yeah, exactly. I know. But it's that the whole idea of being able to fix your stroke all the time is really true. I mean, you work on that constantly. And I think that's why, who was it? Katie Ledecky said she just loves to practice. That's what she loves the most about swimming. She could just practice all day long. And I'm going to assume it's because she's learning. That's the game. That's the gamification of swimming is figuring out, okay, how do I do this perfectly now?
Yeah, I every
Yeah.
like you said, if you're not learning something from a swim practice, you're probably wasting your time. But
Yeah,
you have to be an inquisitive athlete,
you
and
do.
I
Yeah.
recall being 15 and swimming and thinking, "Is this where my hand should go? Is this the right
Yeah.
place? Does this feel like it's more? Does this feel like it's less?" Right? And just always questioning it. Um, I would look to my coach for guidance, and he would give me what he could, but you know,
Yeah.
it was a different time, and we were looking forward, and we were supposed to look like the hull of a boat,
Right.
just
Right.
do all these things, right?
Exactly.
It's like, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'll keep that in mind. But what about these things, right? And
Yeah.
I would watch other swimmers underwater and be like, well, that person swims with their thumb off their hand. That person swims their thumb on their hand.
Right.
Like maybe I should try that, right? Well, what's the secret sauce, right? So
I
there
know.
isn't a secret sauce, just for everyone to know.
Speaking of
Um,
that, are you familiar with the baby finger thing going around? Maybe I'm the last guy to hear this.
oh, you're
So we
if
have
you're
a guy
informing
from
me,
Sweden on the team this year, and he's actually our fastest swimmer. And he, but fast for a triathlon team, he could do 110s,
okay,
110 100 yard repeats, and to me that's good. He could probably get under a minute, but probably not for, not very often. um, but he said, we were talking about sort of using your core body and trying to match the torque that comes from the twist to the stroke and all of that. And immediately when you start talking about that, you lose 75% of the people because they can't deal with all that. And so, but he said, well, if you want to recruit your lats, focus on your baby finger when you take a stroke.
okay.
And so, of course, I had to get in the water and do it, even though my shoulder was a mess, and I
Mhm,
was going for plasma or platelet plasma in the next week, and so I did, and there's actually something to that.
mhm.
He said that if you use your baby finger and you really focus on it and let it lead your stroke, and your power underwater, you will recruit your abs. And I thought, all right, that's fun. And so now everybody, that's kind of our move for the month. Everybody's
Yeah.
doing baby finger lat activation. And so we'll see if it survives another semester. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I think I coach something kind of similar. I don't. We talk about making sure to set a catch, you rotate your hand downward, which would be your little finger kind of going down towards the bottom of the pool, and that turn of
Oh,
your wrist.
really? Like
Yeah,
that? Oop,
no,
like
not.
that.
It's hard to talk about over a podcast, right? Because people aren't going to see this.
Yeah, oh, that's right.
um, basically, just like you can't just keep your wrist neutral, right? It has to rotate a little bit inward because that will
Oh,
help your arm move a little bit under you, and then you rotate your wrist outward. It's sculling, right? So,
yeah,
right, I skull in, my pinky is turning, so that's my catch
yeah.
as my pinky turns in, and as I skull out, that's kind of my finish a little bit. Um, so I have heard people say some things like you want to enter the water like you're shaking a hand with somebody. I strongly disagree with that because it does definitely turn people's elbows downward
I
and
was
make
just
them,
gonna say that. Yeah, you're
yeah,
doing that. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of a weird thought. And so when you say swim with your pinky leading your stroke, it makes me think, oh, someone's gonna
Oh,
slice through the
right.
water. Right?
slice through the water. Oh my god. Yeah. Well, the first thing when you talked about when you talked about the sculling, the inward skull will raise your elbow a bit,
Yep.
and so that might be good. But then there's this whole school of thought that says you're not supposed to skull anymore. You're supposed to go straight back. And that's the path of most resistance.
Mhm.
And so, who knows? I mean, again, it's all an N of one with
Yeah,
is what
so
we're
this
dealing
is
with.
this is my thought about that straight back path, right? Because I've coached that probably since 2005,
Oh,
right?
do you do that? Good.
Yeah, well, not anymore per
Oh,
se,
really?
a little bit. It's the
Okay.
concept that makes sense. It's the application in reality that we have to be aware of, in that your body, as you're swimming, is rotating. So as you rotate, your arm is being pulled inward towards your body,
Yep.
right? So then if you don't change the path of your palm, it's not a straight line. It gets it's a curved line in towards you. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So then
Yeah.
if you just gently adjust your palm as your arm is going back, it keeps your arm in a straight line. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah,
Right?
I can see
So
that.
it's
Sure.
understanding, okay,
Yeah.
that's the physics makes sense. Straight line, I can generate better propulsion. I'm basically pushing a row or a column of water. But if I don't manipulate my hand to do that, my body in action won't allow it. We're not built to
Very
swim,
interesting.
right? So we have to
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
adjustments as we go. Um, One of the things I try to get people to understand early on is that on land, typically objects help form our positions, right?
Yeah.
If I pull
Yeah.
myself out of the pool on the pool deck and I push down, my arms or my wrist automatically flex. The water doesn't do that. You have
Yeah.
to present your palm first, and then the water will do that for you. So you have to create the
Very interesting.
object
Right.
before you can
Right.
actually push against the object, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I go about thinking about this, and I think of something that's I think very powerful. If you could wrap your mind around it, is when we're swimming, we're closer to being we are horizontal. We're closer to crawling than we are anything else. So we are not
Yeah.
bipedal when we swim. We
Yeah.
are
Right.
quadrupeds when we swim, and we should think of that accordingly. Um, you know, mimic quadrupeds. Their front legs don't do weird things like we try to get our arms to do weird things when we swim sometimes, right?
Right.
Very common misconception is arms go behind me when I swim, right? No matter
Yeah.
how
Right.
you recover, arms never go behind you. But
Right.
it's an optical illusion. People see that, they don't realize there's rotation going on and where that
Yeah.
or maybe they're just watching a bad swimmer and they go, "Well, that person does that, I'll do that." Right. But I've never seen my dog's front legs go behind their back, right?
Right.
So the rest of the world's
Yeah.
got it right. It is front crawl. Freestyle denotes for competitive swimming that you can do whatever you need. But it doesn't
Right.
really articulate what that stroke is. Where like breaststroke, you know what it is. Backstroke, I wonder what that means, right? Butterfly,
Right.
kind of a weird thought, but it does kind of look like a butterfly, right? But what is
Mhm.
freestyle? What does that word actually mean? Nothing.
Right.
It means nothing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of semantics, but at the same time, it's what you say that puts a picture into someone's mind, and then I think that the term freestyle confuses people. Actually, it's a free
Yeah.
for all.
Yeah. That's
I got a
exactly
little
right.
deep, didn't it?
Well, getting back to what you were saying about land versus water, and that whole concept of trying to manage your body in a medium that doesn't give you much feedback. If you're running or biking and you do something wrong, you're going to bleed, you're going to bruise, you're going to fall, you're going to do something. And that imprints in your brain some pretty strong motivation not to do that again. And in the water, yeah. I mean, I look at the water as kind of the ultimate the ultimate chaos. Um, and that whole idea of chaos theory that you just have to make your own way and you have to create things as you go along because the world is not going to give you the structure that you'd like to have. That's swimming to me. And
That's really good.
yeah, and that is that's just, some people look at it as an opportunity, uh, to be more efficient and to be more streamlined. And other people look at it as an opportunity to get a high heart rate, and then stop every 25 yards when your heart rate goes to 160, because you're getting a great aerobic workout, but you're a terrible swimmer because you haven't come to terms with that medium yet. And you know, finding your place in that medium, I think, is really critical. And fear has a lot to do with it. We
Yeah.
all, everybody's going to panic at the water at some point.
Yep.
It's just, where's your threshold? That's
Yep.
it. It's happened to me.
Me too.
you know yeah. And then what you do with that is how well how comfortable you are in that medium and in that environment. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
I'll
a
never forget, I was doing my first 5K open water, and I was in the Bahamas. Was actually hosting the 5K, and I hit a point. So the water there where I was in the Bahamas, crystal clear. You can see down like 100 feet, and you can
wow.
see everything that's going on down there too. And there are things going on down there.
Oh
Trust
yeah,
me.
right.
And so I hit a point where it was probably about 60 feet deep, and there was this thought in my head that kind of like was a familiar thought or feeling of when you swim in a diving well, but you haven't been used to swimming in a diving well, and you're like,
Yeah,
"Whoa, that's really far down!" Right? I
right.
was like, "Oh my god, that's really far down, and there's a lot of things down there moving." And
Yeah,
I was praying that my goggles would fog up so I didn't have to look at it anymore.
right,
Right?
right.
I've been there.
Yeah,
I've panicked about it. So, I think it's perfect. I think you're right. It's a threshold. What is your threshold? And
it is.
um,
I was swimming off the coast of Barcelona, around about 30 minutes outside of Barcelona. It was a New Year's Day 1,500-meter swim that everybody does, and there was a coach there who I knew, and we were in Barcelona at the time. He said, "Oh, you got to come and swim this." So it was a wetsuit. I'm not a big wetsuit fan, but the water was cold, and they said, "No, you have to wear a wetsuit." So I said, "Okay." So I don't like them because they're just constricting, and I don't have a problem with balance. I don't need it for buoyancy. I don't need any of that. And so then I found out. So I had gained a bit of weight, and my chest got bigger, and I put the wetsuit on, and it was like really tight. And
mhm,
I thought, this is not a good sign. And so so then there was no chance to warm up, because you jumped off about maybe an 8 to 10 foot little, I'm going to call it a cliff, but it's like a sand, whatever they're called.
yeah,
And so you jumped off and then you ran in the water. So it wasn't like you could jump in and warm up and then get back up to the starting line. So I thought, okay, the water's cold, the waves are high, my wetsuit is tight. And none of this really processed. I didn't process any of this till after I got in the water. And so, like an idiot, I just ran and jumped in the water, swam about 50 yards, and like full full blown panic. It's like, God, I can't breathe. This
mhm,
is I didn't warm up. My heart rate is like God knows what, triple digits. And you just have to kind of find that place to, like, okay, hey, I'm gonna finish last. I get that. Okay, I've reconciled that. And so then after that, you just have to piece it all together. And it's like you just hope that something like your goggles fog up and you don't have
yeah,
to face that reality. And I actually have not had that wetsuit on since. That's probably from some sort of PTSD.
yeah,
And yeah, it's but yeah, it's just a matter of like yeah, it's just a matter of threshold.
yeah.
You know, at some point you will do it. You will go over the edge.
If you're willing,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Um, I always try to tell everyone, like when I do an open water clinic, I try to point out to them that when I was about 16 years old, I started to almost exclusively breathe to my left side. Right? I could breathe to both
Oh,
sides. I could switch whenever I want. I'm great at both sides. To be honest, humble brag, I can breathe well. Um,
uh-huh.
when I swim open water, the first minute or so, I start breathing to my right side exclusively.
Wow.
It's not because I prefer it. It's because there's definitely like a panic in my mind or an overwhelming thing going on in my mind that it goes back to my original execute file. This is what I know. This is what I do. And it's so
Yeah.
bizarre. I'm 41 now. I changed that when I was 16 and it still happens. And then all of a sudden, like clarity. why am I breathing to my right side? And then I start breathing to my left side if I want to. Um,
Yeah.
it happens. There's nothing wrong with it. You accept where you're at and you go, this is it. Okay. The end.
Yeah.
But that's a hard thing to do, right? To say, oh, I
Yeah.
can't breathe because of my wetsuit, to calm your breath down when you're cold and you're constricted.
Oh,
That
yeah.
is a feat, right? So
Yeah.
it's possible,
And
but it's hard.
yeah, and you're swimming in a group of people who are going to elbow you and kick you and, and do
Yeah.
those other friendly things. Wouldn't it be nice if we could swim like a school of fish with the start of a triathlon or the start of an open water and not wind up with elbows in your ribs and feet in your ribs and when I get a swimmer who cannot put their head down in the water, I mean, I'll go under, I'll kind of sit on the bottom of the pool. And when they come swimming at me, I'll grab my hand up and grab their head and pull it down. I mean, even that doesn't stop them. Then I say, okay, so here's the environment you're going to be in when the triathlon starts. You're going to be in a group of people and everybody's going to be hitting and kicking each other. They don't really hate each other. It just happens. And if your head is up and it's out of the water, yeah, you're going to get a bloody nose and a black eye. And if your head is down, they're going to hit your skull and you're going to keep on swimming. So your choice. You decide how you want to deal with this. And either way, we got band-aids, and we can fix you up when you get back in. And it pretty much settles it down. They put their head down. They may
Yeah.
be 15 degrees up, but it's certainly not above water like it was. They're not like water polo players anymore.
No.
So it's a matter. It gets back to the whole idea of the water doesn't care what you do. It is an anarchist playground. You can do whatever you want in the water, and it won't care. And you can choose to either be efficient or inefficient. And if you choose to be efficient, then it's going to be a lifelong learning process.
Yeah.
And
Or a battle, just a battle, right? Because
yeah, right.
just in a lifelong battle with the water that you will always lose. It wins
Yeah.
100% of the time.
Yeah, at some point, yes, you're going to lose. Even if exhaustion takes over, then you're going to lose. It's like getting to. I used to play the Game Boy games, and what was the one where you can get to the ninth level? And I never got past the ninth level. Sooner or later, you're
Tetris.
going to lose. Well, I think it was Tetris. Yes, it was
Tetris.
that
Yeah. Tetris.
mindless Tetris. Yes, and that one and Mario Brothers. But and those are the only video games I ever played. I never got into the other more advanced video games. So, but you're right. You're always gonna at some point you're gonna lose. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other way, speaking of that, there are some places where you can create the strategy where you're always gonna win. So same event in London last June, there's a 5K open water.
Hmm.
So I don't like wetsuits. We've already kind of covered that. And so you could take in these sanctioned events, if you wear a wetsuit, you don't even no matter where you finish, you're not going to get a podium finish. It's the rules are, jammers or speedo. That's it. No
Okay.
full body suits, no rubber anywhere. So to me, that's a godsend. I love that. Water was mid 60s, which is very doable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cold when you first get in, definitely. You got to warm up and you've got to get comfortable in that water. So I looked at the heat sheet, and there were like 7 or 8 of us in my age group, and I thought, all right, and I had just come off of 4 fourth place finishes and 4 or 5, I can't remember now. But anyway, it was not a great race for me because I always finish first, second, or third because I'm swimming against old men, of course. And so I figured, okay, I might get third out of these guys, 8 or 9 guys, I don't know. Turns out I'm the only guy who didn't wear a wetsuit. So I finished first.
There you
And
go.
the rest of them just absolutely blew me out of, I don't know if all of them did, but a few I knew just blew me out of the water. And they could have easily beat me if they just didn't have a wetsuit. And so I got out of the water and I took home the gold and I thought, well, good. I got all fourth place finishes in a first. And it was just because I decided that, okay, I'll compete. I'll compete by the rules and not wear a wetsuit. So let there be a lesson. Throw away your wetsuits.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah, Xterra is going to put a hit on me now. They're going to be like, I'm
I've
going to
had
get these
lovely
balls.
conversations with Glenn, the CEO of Xterra, by the
Right.
way. Very nice
Right.
guy. And
Yeah.
they might
Yeah. I'm
actually
going to get
sponsor the
calls
podcast
in the
at some
middle of
point.
the night. Hey, speaking of that, there are these goggles that now apparently, should I say the brand? There are 2
Yeah,
of these goggles. They're Form.
yeah, form
And
goggles are
and
great.
actually, I bought
Makes sense.
them when they first came out. I was like the 3rd guy to buy them, and I sent them back. They were just so bad. And I thought, "You know what? Wait till you get these." I mean, it couldn't tell, butterfly from knitting. I mean, it was just that bad. And so I sent it back, and I didn't hear anymore. And then I bought the other one, and I forgot the name of the other one. They were even worse, and I should actually remember the name so I can actually not bag on form. And I've just forgot. Oh, CIYE or CYIECA or something like that. That
Yeah, not
they were
ringing
even
a bell.
worse, and the little lens thing was way off to the side, and you couldn't see it unless you had the peripheral vision of a golden eagle. You couldn't see the numbers. But anyway, so they just came out with a new one that they're saying
Mhm.
incorporates some AI and has some other stuff. I don't know if you've had any experience with it, but I would love for it to work, and I would buy it in a minute. But I'm a little shy, so
So,
I don't know.
what I've been told is the Form 2 goggles are better than the originals. Um, the people who tend to really enjoy them tend to tell me that they enjoy them in the open water for the most part, versus in pool. In pool, it's a lot of like distraction in a way. Where like in
Yeah,
open water, it can be beneficial because it can kind of like you can help track your heart rate and your stroke rate, and you can kind of just keep those things in mind while you're in open water where you don't have lengths to count necessarily, or
right.
something to give you some limitation and understanding, right? To collect some data while you're doing that open water. Um, Actually, one of my marathon swimmers was working with Form to help them develop their workout portion where it will generate workouts for you, and it goes
Mhm.
scrolls through the workout as you're swimming, and it like stops the
Right.
clock for you and everything, right? So
Yeah.
she had reached out to them. She was an early adapter for Form goggles, and she had reached out to them and said, "Hey, there's some issues with what you guys are trying to do." And laid it out for them. And she's an engineer, and so she was like, they asked her to help, and so she was giving feedback and meeting with them like monthly to like just help them kind of develop that. So, um, what I have been told recently is that Magic 5 are the goggles for everybody, right? Where
Really?
form goggles are great for training and getting data. You don't want to wear them all the time. You just don't. It's you lose the zen of your swim. You
Mhm.
lose like the flow and the natural like let me bring
I
order to
did.
this
That's
chaos,
absolutely true. I did. Yes.
right? And
But now
so
tell me about Magic 5.
Magic 5 is the brand that like they'll take a screen, I don't know what to call it. You take a picture of your face and then they mold the goggles to your face. So they're
Really?
supposed to be incredibly uncomfortable.
Hmm.
They're like $60,
Okay.
maybe 70, but everyone swears by them, especially my marathon swimmers. They swear by them. Like these are the goggles that I want to swim with all the time. A lot of my clients will bounce back and forth between their own pair of goggles and then the form goggles, just almost like as their personal coach. They use the form goggles in a way, right, for that
Mhm.
specific swim. So, um, but that also, I think, it goes into the put another gadget into your mesh bag,
Right.
right? It's what it is. So, I
And
think
the Magic goggles, though, don't have any technology in them.
none
Okay.
other than they just fit very well.
Yeah.
And when you're swimming, like the person I'm talking about, shout out to Carol. She just did Scars in Arizona, which is I think it's like 3 days or 6 days of like each day you swim a lake that they're connected to each other.
Really? Oh, wow.
So yeah, she
Cool.
did like 9 miles, nine
Yeah.
miles, and 17 miles, and God love her. I
Yes.
can't. I
Yes.
wouldn't do it.
No.
I wouldn't do that. So,
No,
yeah,
that's a
it's
lot.
interesting to see how technology is advancing swimming or how technology is disrupting swimming. Where it's like use these paddles because they'll make you faster. 2 years from now, you'll never see those paddles again. Things
That's
like
right.
that. So
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah,
always
yeah.
interesting to me. All right, so we're gonna have to wrap this up in a little bit.
Oh,
So I
okay.
want to wrap this up with your advice on uh, for a beginner triathlete. what are the things that they should be kind of like thinking about mentally, a philosophy that they should have for themselves mentally, and a philosophy for their training. I think they dovetail for sure, but often I think people get advice about training, but don't get advice about how they should think about it. And I know that you're a conceptual guy. You're a guy that's in touch with his feelings
Mm.
as well. So I'm curious if you have any advice or philosophies about that.
So first, I think you cannot buy your way into triathlon. And the temptation is so great to buy your way in. Whether it's swimming, bike, run, bike, of course, is the biggest temptation. Well, no, the SUV is the biggest temptation. You want an SUV with the bike rack on the back. And so, but you cannot buy your way into triathlon. I think the second most important part about beginner triathletes is that it's like going to a foreign country and trying out the language. You have to just speak it, and you know you're going to sound stupid, and you know that some people are going to laugh at you, but most people are going to encourage you. And especially if you're in a place like France where they think the French language is the best language in the world, if you try, that people will respond positively. And I think that there is a great amount of pressure on beginner triathletes to kind of be really good before you do your first triathlon. And really, all you have to do is be fit before you do your first triathlon. And then the third part is that understand that triathlon is something you're probably going to do for pretty much the rest of your life. That it's not something you can do. You can't just, it's not like paddleball. Okay, so everybody, you can go paddleball. You can learn paddleball in what? I don't know. I don't want to bag on paddleball, but 15 minutes, you can learn paddleball. There's a lot of strategy to it. I get it. There's a whole lot of that, obviously. But paddleball you can do, and then you can put it down, and you don't have to worry about it for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and then you can do it. Or golf. You can play golf once a year, and you can still have fun with it. You're not going to do triathlon training once a year and have any fun. So it's a commitment. And if you don't enjoy the process, like Katie Ledecky, if you don't enjoy that, you're not going to enjoy triathlon. So go in cheap, keep your expectations realistic. Don't rush through transition, and
Good
and
advice.
be happy with where you are. The only thing you're doing is improving your health. That's why you do triathlon. You don't do triathlon to pick up medals, and you don't do it to show off at cocktail parties, although everybody does. I'm training for a triathlon. That's like the big deal. But you're really doing it so that you can have a longer life and you can live and you can be healthier. And you have to leave room for it to become part of your identity. That part, the healthy part that this is what I do. Because you go to a triathlon, you expect all sorts of calamities to ensue. You're going to have a flat tire. You're going to have, you're going to panic in the water. The water's going to be too cold. They're going to screw up the timing. Chip's going to fall off. All those things are going to happen, and it allows you to just bring your zen to something that's also making you very healthy. And if you can do that, you'll meet a lot of great people and you'll have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty sound advice, and um, it is very much so in line with what I've been hearing a lot of recently, which is triathlon is a lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
And what you basically just said is prepare yourself to change your lifestyle and make this your lifestyle, and I think that's a really fair way to think about it, and really smart way to think about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I had a one of my clients on in a previous podcast, Josh, in a comment in passing, he said something that I thought was very powerful, actually, which was make sure everyone in your life is on board with what you're doing.
Oh,
Because
good
if
way. Good
if you
idea.
get into triathlon, it's you're changing your lifestyle. So your significant other, they need to be on board with it. Your kids, they've got to be on board with it, right?
Right.
All these people, whoever it is, they've got to be on board because you're going to be changing your life.
That
So,
is such great advice. That really is. In fact, we have a friends and family policy that Columbia fights me on every year. And I think friends and family should be on the bus with us when we go to triathlons. bring your boyfriend, bring your girlfriend, bring your mother, bring anybody you want, bring your kids. And
Yeah.
we did that for the first year. And then Columbia found out and they said, no, no, our job is to reduce risk to zero. So we want nobody on the bus who's not an enrolled student, who's not paid their dues to the club and on and on. And I said, you know what? You're missing the picture. You're missing the point here, Columbia. And I love Columbia, but that's why I bag on them. But they missed the point. They lost the
Yeah.
plot somewhere along the line because you're absolutely right. And if you're a student, especially, or you're a young professional and your work takes up a lot of your time, you better bring your spouse with you to triathlon, and they better enjoy it. And the same with your kids,
Yeah.
because and I still think it's better than sitting on the couch eating Doritos watching football. Sorry, I just do.
Yeah.
And I know you can't. That's not going to change anybody's mind. But I said it.
There you go.
That's
All
right. That's
right,
right.
Lou, thank
Okay.
you so much for your time.
Thank
We
you.
will absolutely do this again. And
Yeah.
we can talk for hours on end probably. Um,
Yeah.
so,
Definitely.
we'll save more conversation for another podcast, basically. Um, so yeah, thank you so much, and I'll let you know when this is out.
That's great. Thanks for everything you do. You have a huge impact on the sport. So
Thank
good
you. I
for you.
appreciate that. All right, I'll talk
Absolutely.
to you later. Bye.
Okay. All right. Bye.